All right, so let's start. Paper 2 of O-Levels, October, November 2024, variance 21. Question number 1. Figure 1.1 shows the electronic configuration of 5 atoms. Answer the question about these electronic configurations. In order to give the answer, first of all, let's find out the valence electron and the period number of each element. All right. So element D belongs to group 2 of the periodic table because it contains 2 valence electrons. Also, it has 3 shells, which is why it is found in period 3 of the periodic table. Group number is always represented by Roman numerals and period number is always represented by English numerals. That's what we have discussed in the class. Now, in E, we have 4 valence electrons. And since it has only 2 shells, as you can see, which is why it is found in period 2 of the periodic table. Now, F has 2 shells. And also it has 8 valence electrons, which means F is found in group 8 of the periodic table and in period 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 valence electrons, which means element G belongs to group 6. Also, it has 3 valence shells. It has total 3 shells, and therefore it is found in period 3 of the periodic table. Element H contain only 1 valence electrons, and so it is found in group 1 of the periodic table. How many shells we have? 1, 2, 3, and this one is 4. So it has 4 shells, which means it is found in period 4 of the periodic table. Now let's start the question. An atom of an element in group 6 of the periodic table. Group 6, element G is found in group 6 of the periodic table. An atom that forms ion that gives lilac color in flame test. Lilac color means potassium, and potassium is found in group 1 of the periodic table, and group 1 element belongs, and H belongs to group 1, which means it must be H here. Remember that this lilac color shows potassium, and potassium is found in group 1 of the periodic table. Okay. Next is an atom of a monatomic gas. Again, monatomic gas means consists of 1 atom only. If it consists of 1 atom, which means it needs to be in group 8 of the periodic table. So F is found in group 8 of the periodic table. So F is going to be the monatomic gas. Next is an atom of an element that is used in the treatment of the domestic water supply. Domestic water supply to remove taste and odor. To remove taste and odor, we normally use charcoal, and charcoal is basically carbon, and carbon is found in group 4 of the periodic table. So let's check which one is group 4. Element E belongs to group 4. Next is an atom that forms a stable ion losing 2 electrons. Losing 2 electrons means oxidation takes place. And this must be group 2 elements, and this must be a metal also, because metal always loses electron. Okay. So if it loses 2 electron, which means it belongs to group 2 of the periodic table, and element D belongs to group 2. So I'm going to write D here. B part, reduce the number of protons and neutrons in chromium atom. By the way, chromium is a transition element. Its atomic number is 24, which means it has 24 protons. We have atomic mass is 53, atomic number is 24. If we subtract these two values, I'll get around 29 29 neutrons. Okay, so that's the end of this first question. Let's move on to the second one. Iron is extracted in a blast furnace by the reduction of iron 3 oxide with carbon monoxide. Remember one thing, carbon monoxide is a reducing agent. And so it is a redox reaction because carbon monoxide is oxidized while iron over here is getting reduced. So reaction is a redox reaction. State the meaning of the term redox. When oxidation and reduction both takes place simultaneously in a reaction. अगर आप सिर्फ यहां तक लिखते हैं, यहां तक कि ऑक्सीडेशन एंड रिडक्शन बोथ टेक्स प्लेस, सो आपको हो सकता है मार्क्स ना मिले मार्किंग स्कीम में. सो यू नीड टू राइट simultaneously in a reaction also. Okay, explain how carbon monoxide acts as a reducing agent in this reaction because carbon monoxide itself is oxidized. Reducing agent क्या होते हैं? जो दूसरे कंपाउंड को रिड्यूस करते हैं और खुद ऑक्सीडाइज हो, तो कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड इज गेटिंग ऑक्सीडाइज्ड इनटू कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड. और आप ये भी कह सकते हैं कि कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड यहाँ पर एक ऑक्सीजन है, यहाँ 2 ऑक्सीजन है, सो ड्यूरिंग द रिएक्शन कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड is getting oxygen or gains oxygen. Gains oxygen. Next, calcium carbonate is added to the blast furnace. The calcium carbonate undergoes thermal decomposition. The thermal decomposition of calcium carbonate is endothermic. Complete the reaction pathway diagram, figure 2.1, to show the reactants and products. Okay, so first of all, reaction is endothermic, which means energy of reactant is lower and energy of product is higher. And also one thing, endothermic energy is always absorbed. Okay, so this is the reactant, calcium carbonate, and this is the product, calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So first check mark done. Now the next check mark is labeled arrow for the activation energy. Examiner is looking for an arrow. Okay, so for arrow, let me draw this. All right. This is activation energy arrow. And activation energy is represented by capital E small a. Second check mark done. Now the last check mark is labeled arrow for the enthalpy change. So endothermic reaction के लिए delta H arrow is always upward like this. And this delta H needs to be positive because it is an endothermic reaction. All right. So third check mark done. I hope it makes sense to you. Let's move on to the next part of the question. Describe how slag formed in the blast furnace. Symbol equation, your answer. So we need to mention symbol equation also. So first of all, calcium carbonate is decomposed into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So the equation for this reaction is going to be like this. CaCO3 has to be solid. Calcium oxide solid, carbon dioxide is a gas, because examiner is looking for the symbol equation, right? Now this calcium oxide reacts with silicon dioxide to give molten slag, and the equation for this reaction is going to be like this: calcium oxide plus silicon dioxide will turn to calcium silicate. That calcium silicate is slag actually. Calcium silicate is a formula of CaSiO3. Examiner is looking for the symbol equation, so we can write like this. Since it is molten slag, which is why it is liquid. Okay. So I don't know the marking scheme, which is why I need to give my complete answer, which is why I have, मैंने दोनों equations mention की हैं. आप चाहें तो सिर्फ ये वाली इक्वेशन भी मेंशन कर सकते हैं, ये वाली ना करें, इट डजंट मेक एनी डिफरेंस. बट सिंस आई डोंट नो द मार्किंग स्कीम, सो मेरा पॉइंट ये है कि आप आंसर कंप्लीट दें, बिल्कुल प्रॉपर आंसर दें. आयरन इज अ ट्रांजिशन एलिमेंट. ओके, ट्रांजिशन एलिमेंट्स हैव कलर्ड कंपाउंड. सो इसका मतलब मुझे कलर्ड कंपाउंड की जो सिचुएशन है ये नहीं बतानी, प्रॉपर्टीज नहीं मेंशन करनी. वो कह रहे हैं स्टेट टू अदर फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज दैट ऑफ टिपिकल ट्रांजिशन एलिमेंट नॉट of group 1 metals. Okay, so first of all, they have variable oxidation state, and also they acts as a catalyst. Okay, the equation shows the decomposition of iron pentacarbonyl in a closed container. If it is a closed container, obviously it needs to be a reversible reaction. Examiner has given the reversible reaction, right? Predict and explain what happens to the position of equilibrium. Examiner is looking for the position of equilibrium when pressure is decreased. So when pressure is decreased, according to my lecture, equilibrium favors in that direction where we can have more number of moles. And that means that we need to find out the more number of moles in the equation first. So I'm going to ignore this substance because it is found in liquid. I'm going to ignore this substance, which is because it is found in the solid state. So I'm going to use this substance because it is a gaseous molecule. So it has 5 moles here and it has 0 moles here. So if you decrease the pressure, equilibrium favors towards right hand side because of more number of moles. So prediction, equilibrium position favors towards product side or towards right hand side. Okay, because of more number of moles. Explanation: since product side has more moles than reactant side, all right, this reaction can be used to produce pure iron. Describe and explain by referring to the equation. I need to explain by using the equation how a sample of pure iron that is free from this substance is produced from the equilibrium mixture. Since reaction is taking place in a closed container, right? And examiner is looking for the pure iron which is free from this compound. I mean, which is free from iron pentacarbonyl, which means this reaction needs to be conducted in an open container. अगर open container में होगा तो obviously carbon monoxide is given off. When carbon monoxide is given off, position of equilibrium favors towards right hand side. So in an open container, only iron exists. All right. So what we can write here: pure iron is obtained when open container is used this causes the position of equilibrium favors towards right hand side because carbon monoxide is escaped from the open container. Iron reacts with hot concentrated sulfuric acid. So I believe examiner ने मुझे reactants बता दिए. Examiner has given the products also: iron 3 sulfate, sulfur dioxide, and a liquid. So iron 3 sulfate का formula is Fe2SO4 taken 3. Sulfur dioxide is the formula of SO2, and a liquid that turns anhydrous copper sulfate blue. So this test confirms that this liquid needs to be water. So examiner ने मुझे reactants बता दिए, examiner ने मुझे products बता दिए. Examiner needs the symbol equation and obviously the balance symbol equation. So let me write it here: Fe plus H2SO4 it will turn to iron 2 sulfate, iron 3 sulfate, Fe2SO4 taken 3 plus sulfur dioxide plus H2O. All right. Iron is solid because it is a metal. H2SO4 has to be in aqueous form. Iron 3 sulfate has to be in aqueous form. Sulfur dioxide is a gas. At room temperature, water is liquid. Now let's balance the equation. How many iron atoms here? 2. So put 2 here. So iron is balanced. Now we have how many oxygen now? 4 times 3, 12, 12 plus 2, 14, 14 plus 1, 15 oxygen. We have 14 or 4 oxygen. So 15 करना है. Okay, एक और perspective भी देखो, यहाँ 3 सल्फेट है. So let's suppose मैं यहाँ पर 3 अप्लाई करता हूँ सल्फेट को बैलेंस करने के लिए. जब मैं यहाँ 3 अप्लाई करूंगा तो यहाँ पर ऑक्सीजन कितने हो जाएंगे? 3 times 4, 12, और यहाँ पर 12 से ज्यादा है तो इसका मतलब ये 3 से सॉल्व नहीं होगा. तो 4 से करके देखते हैं. 4 times 4 कितने हो जाएंगे? 4 times 4 16. यहाँ पर 15 है. अभी भी बैलेंस नहीं है तो इसका मतलब हम 5 से करके देखेंगे. 5 times 4 कितना होता है? 20. और ये 20 नहीं है, ये टेक्निकली आपके पास 15 है तो इसका मतलब ये अभी भी बैलेंस नहीं है. सो लेट मी राइट हियर 6. तो ये हो जाएगा आपके पास 6 times 2 12. तो हाइड्रोजन 12 है तो यहाँ 6 कीजिए. ओके, लेट्स काउंट ऑक्सीजन नाउ. 6 times 4 24. Let's count here. 4 times 3 12. 12 plus 2 14. 14 plus 6 20. Okay, how many sulfur here? 6 sulfur. So I need to balance sulfur also. यहाँ 3 already balance कर दिए मैंने sulfur, तो यहाँ पर 3 balance करो. Okay, so sulfur is balanced now. One more time. Iron is 2. 2 here. How many sulfur here? 6. So 3 sulfur हमने यहाँ लिखे. 3 sulfur हमने यहाँ लिखे. Sulfur balanced. How many oxygen atoms? 6 times 4 24. 4 times 3 12. 12 plus 6 कितना होता है? 18. 18 plus 6 कितना होता है? 24. Okay. So this equation is balanced now. ये जो मैंने पहले 3 से करके देखा, फिर 4 से करके देखा, फिर 5 से करके देखा, फिर 6 से करके देखा, इसको कहते हैं trial and error method. Okay, that's the end of this question. Let's move on to the next one. Next question related to electrolysis straight away. Figure 3.1 shows the apparatus used for the electrolysis of concentrated aqueous sodium chloride. Now, aqueous sodium chloride has sodium ions, chloride ions, hydrogen ions, and hydroxide ions. Okay. One more thing, chloride ion will discharge first from the electrolyte at anode because its concentration ज़्यादा है, and its equation is going to be 2Cl minus Cl2 plus 2 electron. Obviously, hydrogen ion discharge first from the electrolyte at cathode because it is closer to the line of discharge. Also, its equation has to be like this. Okay. Now, this electrode is attached to the negative terminal of the battery, which means it is cathode. And this electrode is attached to the positive terminal of the battery, which means it is anode. Which means यहाँ पर हमारे पास collect होगी hydrogen gas, यहाँ पर हमारे पास collect होगी chlorine gas. By the way, both cathode and anode are generally called electrodes, and these electrodes are made up of graphite. Label the cathode on figure 3.1. I did that already. Explain why concentrated aqueous sodium chloride conducts electricity. Because concentrated sodium chloride is an electrolyte, and all electrolytes conduct electricity because of the presence of free mobile ions. So due to the presence of free mobile ions. Next is name the product formed at the cathode. Obviously, hydrogen gas. Chlorine is formed at anode. Construct the ionic half equation for the reaction at anode. That's an easy task. We have done this case in the class also. Graphite is suitable as an electrode because it conducts electricity. State one other property of graphite that makes it suitable. It is inert, and unreactive. Inert बोलो unreactive बोलो, it doesn't make any difference. आप दोनों में से कोई भी एक terminology use कर सकते हैं. State the product form at the cathode when molten sodium chloride is electrolyzed. When we say molten, that means no water. Which means we have sodium ion, we have chloride ion. Chloride ion discharge at anode in the form of chlorine gas, whereas sodium ion discharge at cathode in the form of molten sodium. So examiner is looking for the product at cathode, so just write sodium or molten sodium. Okay, so that's the end of this question number 3. Let's move on to the next question, question number 4. This question is about alkane, which is a saturated hydrocarbon, and alkene, which is an unsaturated hydrocarbon. This is saturated because it contains single bond between the carbon atom. It is unsaturated because it contains double bond between the carbon atoms. Butanene is also called 1-butene, and butanene belongs to homologous series. Members of the same homologous series differ from one another by CH2 group, and this CH2 group is also called methylene group. That's what we have discussed in the class. Okay, and have similar chemical properties. State 2 other characteristic properties of homologous series. Now they have the same chemical properties because they have the same functional group. And also they have the same general formula. This is the structure of butanene, or you can say this is the displayed formula of butanene. All right, displayed formula is a formula in which we need to mention all the atoms and all the bonds. Explain how figure 1.1 shows that butanene is an unsaturated compound because butanene contains double bond between the carbon atom. Give the structural formula of butanene. So ये जो displayed लिखा है इसी को structural में convert कर देते हैं. CH3, CH2, CH, double bond CH2. Structural formula can be written like this. So both these possibilities are acceptable in the paper. Draw the displayed formula of an isomer of butanene. Butanene has multiple isomers, but the most common one is but2-ene, which is also called 2-butene. If you remember, we have done that in class. So 1 carbon, 2nd carbon, 3rd carbon, and 4th carbon. See, मैं क्या करूंगा, मैं यहां से डबल बॉन्ड यहां शिफ्ट करूंगा और ये वाला जो हाइड्रोजन है इस कार्बन एटम पे शिफ्ट करूंगा. So if I'll arrange these things, structure is going to be like this. ये डबल बॉन्ड यहां आ गया, ये 2 हाइड्रोजन ऑलरेडी थे, एक शिफ्ट होकर आया, ये हाइड्रोजन ऑलरेडी था, ये भी हाइड्रोजन ऑलरेडी था, ये हाइड्रोजन और ये हाइड्रोजन एज इट इज. So that's but2-ene. Okay. So both butanene and but2-ene are isomers of each other. Next, undecane, which is C11H24, present in kerosene or paraffin fraction from the distillation of petroleum. Give one use of kerosene or paraffin fraction. So kerosene is used as jet fuel. When undecane is cracked, shorter hydrocarbon molecules are formed. Construct the symbol equation. So examiner is looking for the symbol equation in which undecane, which is C11H24, is cracked. The only products are butane, propene, and ethene. So let me write the equation. C11H24, and obviously it has to be liquid. देखो मैंने आपको स्टेट्स बताई थी, C1 से लेके C4 तक gases, C5 to C16 liquid, C17 onward solids. So it has to be the liquid. ठीक है. और kerosene जो होता है, okay, this is liquid. We need to mention butane. Butane has a formula of C4H10. It is a gas. Propene is C3H6. It is also a gas. And ethene is C2H4, which is also a gas. Now we need to balance the number of carbon atoms and number of hydrogen atoms. Ethene has to be in the maximum amount, which is why I will put 3 here. Let's check. 3 times 2, 6. Oh, 6 plus 3, 9. 9 plus 4, 9, 10, 11. Oh, ज़्यादा हो गई ये तो. So ये 3 नहीं आएगा इसका मतलब. Let me check. 4 plus 3, 7. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. So put 2 here. Okay. So this is 4. 2 times 2, 4. 4 plus 4, 8. 8 plus 3, 11. How many hydrogen atoms? 10 plus 6, 16. 16 plus 2 4s are 8. 16 plus 8 is 24. Okay. Propane is basically an alkane. When reacts with chlorine, then it forms chloropropane and one other product X. Name the product X. That's easy, guys. Look, how many hydrogen atoms here? 8. How many hydrogen atoms here? 7, which means 1 hydrogen lost. How many chlorine atom here? 2. How many chlorine atom here? 1, which means 1 chlorine lost, which means HCl is lost, which means this X must be hydrogen chloride. Examiner is looking for the name. So it's hydrogen chloride. Do not write hydrochloric acid, because when hydrogen chloride is placed in water, then it becomes an acid. And since there is no water here, it has to be hydrogen chloride. Okay. State the essential conditions. Essential conditions, the most prominent ones. Whenever chlorine is used, obviously, ultraviolet light. Next. Ethene reacts with bromine at room temperature. Figure 4.2 shows the displayed formulae of the reactants and products. Let me copy this equation because I'm going to use it in the calculation. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, okay. Calculate the enthalpy change of this reaction in kilojoules per mole. So examiner is looking for a value in kilojoules per mole. And examiner is given the bond energy values. So first of all, हम reactants के लिए working करेंगे और हम products के लिए working करेंगे. All right. So we have carbon hydrogen का bond. carbon and hydrogen has a bond energy of 413. Since we have 4 bonds, so into 4 करेंगे तो हमारे पास आंसर आएगा 413 into 4 1652. Now we have carbon double bond carbon also, and its bond energy value is 612. We have bromine molecule also, and its bond energy is 193. So if we add all these values, 193 plus 612, so it's going to be 2457. All right. So total energy absorbed in breaking these bonds would be 2457. All right. Let's talk about the product now. Now in products, we have carbon hydrogen bond, which is a bond energy of 413. We have 4 bonds of CH. So into 4. So it's going to be again 1652. We have single bond between the carbon atom, and its bond energy value is 347. We have carbon bromine ka bond. CBr bond is basically 290. Multiply करेंगे हम 2 से, because यहाँ 2 bonds हैं CBr के. So it's going to be how much? So 290 into 2 is going to be 580. Add all these values, plus 1652 plus 347. So it's 2579. All right. So in order to calculate enthalpy change, I'm going to use this formula. Enthalpy of reactants minus enthalpy of product. Just plug in the values in this formula. 2457 minus 2579 minus 2457 is going to be minus 122. So minus 122 is going to be the right option and right answer for you. Describe the color change when sample of excess ethene is added to few drops of aqueous bromine. Aqueous bromine has a red-brown color. All right. So during the reaction, it turns into colorless. Red-brown to colorless. We have done this whole thing in the class. Next question, question number 5. A student adds large pieces of copper to carbonate to dilute hydrochloric acid. The copper to carbonate is in excess. So first of all, let me tell you a couple of things. If it is large piece, obviously large surface area. Sorry. If it is a large piece, obviously small surface area. All right. Second thing, if it is diluted, obviously it has more water than hydrochloric acid. That means because of diluted factor, molecules of HCl are away from each other and are not crowded. Okay. And also this HCl is a limiting reactant because copper carbonate is in excess. Complete the equation by adding state symbols. Copper chloride is soluble in water. It has to be aqueous. Water is liquid. Oops. Water is liquid. while carbon dioxide is a gas. Figure 5.1 shows how the mass of the reaction mixture changes with time in the reaction as the reaction proceeds. So mass of the reaction mixture with time decreases, which means rate of reaction also decreases, right? In another experiment, powdered copper to carbonate is used. So when we say powdered, then it means more reacting particles, large surface area. Okay. All other conditions and the mass of copper to carbonate stays the same. If all other conditions are same, then it means ग्राफ सेम पोजीशन पे जाकर कंप्लीट होगा, सेम पॉइंट को टच करेगा. So draw a line on the grid in figure 5.2 to show how the mass of the reaction mixture changes. Since it has a large surface area, that means higher rate of reaction. If rate of reaction is higher, obviously more steeper curve would be obtained. So on the basis of that, the curve has to be like this. All right. Whew. I hope it makes sense to you. Next, the initial experiment is repeated using large pieces of copper to carbonate and hydrochloric acid of a higher concentration. So concentration of hydrochloric acid increases. Describe and explain the difference in the rate of reaction when hydrochloric acid of a higher concentration is used. That's easy. If concentration of HCl increases, more reacting molecules increases. If reacting molecules increases, then HCl molecules are crowded. Effective collision in a unit time increases, also called collision frequency. So rate of reaction increases. Excess copper to carbonate is added to 22.0 cm cube of hydrochloric acid. So I know the concentration and volume of hydrochloric acid, which means I can find the moles of HCl. So first of all, let's find the moles of HCl. 1000 cm cube of HCl contain 0.50 moles. So अगर आपके पास 22.0 cm cube of HCl है, so moles is going to be how much? ये हो जाएगा 22.0 into 0.5. divided by 1000. So it's going to be how much? It's going to be 0.011 moles. Okay, let's read the question again. Calculate the volume of carbon dioxide released. So examiner is looking for the volume of carbon dioxide at room temperature and pressure, which means I have to consider HCl and carbon dioxide because HCl is a limiting reactant also. I need to ignore copper carbonate because it's in excess. All right. So hydrochloric acid and carbon dioxide has 2:1 ratio. So if we have calculated 0.001 mole, so moles of carbon dioxide would be 0.0015 moles. Not 15, मेरे पास 5.5 है. So basically it's 5 moles. Okay. Now in the next, we need to find out the volume of carbon dioxide. In order to calculate this volume, I'm going to multiply moles of carbon dioxide into volume of carbon dioxide, which is 24 dm cube at RTP. So it's going to be 0.132 dm cube. All right. So examiner is looking for the answer in two significant figures, which means I'm going to write 0.13 dm cube. Next, describe the observation made when few drops of aqueous ammonia are added to aqueous solution containing copper 2 ions. When we have copper 2 ions and when we add few drops of ammonia, obviously blue precipitates are formed. And when we add excess aqueous ammonia in the blue precipitates, obviously blue precipitates are soluble and giving dark blue solution. An ionic compound of copper has the formula Cu2O. Deduce the oxidation number of copper in this. I'm going to deduce the oxidation number, but before that, you guys should know, you guys should have know the name of this oxide. Its name is copper 1 oxide. Since its name is copper 1 oxide, which means the oxidation state of copper in this oxide would be +1. All right. Let me show you how to calculate the oxidation state in this oxide. Let's suppose copper is 2x because we have 2 copper in the formula. Oxygen has a charge of -2. Since the molecule is neutral and has no charge, which is y equals to 0, then x equals to 2 by 2, and then x equals to +1. All right. So the oxidation state of copper in this oxide would be +1, which is why the name of this oxide is going to be copper 1 oxide. Next part. Describe how to prepare crystals of ammonium chloride. See, ammonium chloride is a soluble salt. in order to prepare this salt, I'm using aqueous ammonia, which is basically an alkali, and dilute hydrochloric acid, which is basically an acid. नाम से पता चल रहा है. So technically acid alkali titration होगी, और टाइट्रेशन को पहले हम इंडिकेटर के साथ करेंगे, फिर विदाउट इंडिकेटर करेंगे, और विदाउट इंडिकेटर करने के बाद हम जो फिल्ट्रेट होगा या सोल्यूशन होगा उसको सैचुरेटेड सोल्यूशन में कन्वर्ट करके क्रिस्टल्स हासिल करेंगे. उन क्रिस्टल्स को कोल्ड वाटर से वॉश करके फिल्टर पेपर पे ड्राई कर लेंगे. ओके, दैट्स द होल प्रोसेस व्हिच वी नीड टू राइट फॉर 3 months. So in the first line, titration occur between aqueous ammonia and dilute HCl using indicator. Repeat. Repeat the same experiment without using an indicator. Okay. Make a saturated solution through heating. Cool the solution at RTP. To get the crystals. Wash the crystals with distilled water. And dry them on filter paper. So that's the end of this question also. Next question, question number 6. Figure 6.1 shows the structure of zinc sulfide and disulfur dichloride. Zinc sulfide has a structure similar to diamond, which means जो properties diamond की हैं वो zinc sulfide की भी होंगी, like no electrical conductivity, like high melting and boiling point, insoluble in water. All right, giant covalent structure, lattice structure होगा, और वो बना के भी दिया हुआ है उन्होंने. Explain why zinc sulfide does not conduct electricity because of the absence of free mobile electron. Or we can say because of the absence of delocalized electron. Delocalized or mobile electrons is the same thing, same concept. Predict one other physical properties of zinc sulfide. High melting and boiling point, insoluble in water. If diamond is insoluble in water, so is zinc sulfide. or high melting point and boiling point? जैसे मैं यहाँ शॉर्टकट लिख रहा हूँ या फॉर्मूले लिख रहा हूँ, आप पेपर में नहीं लिख सकते, आपको कंप्लीट आंसर देना है, ठीक है? कोई टर्मिनोलॉजी आपने शॉर्ट फॉर्म में नहीं लिखनी। इनफैक्ट मैंने जैसे यहाँ बिकॉज लिखा है तो ये भी आप शॉर्ट फॉर्म में नहीं लिखेंगे, ठीक है? प्रेसिपिटेट मैं जैसे बार बार लिख रहा हूँ पीबीटी, आप नहीं लिखेंगे, आप उसको फुल फॉर्म में लिखेंगे। Explain why disulfur dichloride has a low melting point. Use the information given in 6.1. By the way, disulfur dichloride exhibit simple covalent molecule with weak van der Waals forces. In class, I've told you van der Waals forces are also called intermolecular forces. To overcome this force, less energy is needed. Complete figure 6.2 to show the dot and cross diagram for the electronic configuration of disulfur dichloride. Use outer shell electrons only. So I'm going to use outer shell electrons. Sulfur is found in group 6 of the periodic table. And according to this diagram, single bond exists between these elements, which means a single covalent bond ki example hai. And single covalent bond is always formed when one electron of each element share together. So that's the concept, that I need to use one electron of each element. So sulfur contains 6 valence electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now chlorine has 7 valence electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This chlorine also 7 valence electron, 3, 5, and this one is 7. Okay. Next is disulfur dichloride reacts with water as shown. 13.5 gram of sulfur dichloride is reacted with 8 gram of water. Show by calculation water is in excess. That's an easy thing. First of all, take out the MR of S2Cl2. Sulfur has a mass of 32 into 2 plus chlorine has a mass of 35.5 into 2. So it's going to be how much? 135. Let's take out the MR of water. Oxygen is 16, hydrogen is 1, multiply by 2. So it's going to be 18. Okay. We know the mass of disulfur dichloride, which means we can, first of all, we can find out the number of moles. So moles of S2Cl2, 13.5 divided by 135 ultimately is going to be 0.1 mole. Similarly, moles of water, because mass of water is already given in the question. Okay, so 88 gram divided by 18 is going to be how much? 0.444 moles. So आप नोट करें, यहाँ moles of water ज्यादा हैं और moles of S2Cl2 कम है, इसका मतलब water excess amount के अंदर है. आप चाहें तो मोलर रेशियो भी लेके अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. फॉर इंस्टेंस S2Cl2 है, रेशियो वाटर है, अकॉर्डिंग टू द इक्वेशन ये 1 मोल है, ये 3 मोल है. अगर आपके पास 0.1 मोल है तो बताइए ये कितना होगा, तो ये हो जाएगा 0.3 मोल्स ऑफ वाटर। तो इनिशियली मेरे पास कितना है 0.444 और रिएक्ट कितना हो रहा है 0.3। तो अगर मैं इन दोनों को सब्ट्रैक्ट करूंगा तो जाहिर सी बात है कुछ ना कुछ वाटर का अमाउंट बच जाएगा, और जब वाटर का अमाउंट बच रहा है दैट इंडिकेट्स द वाटर एक्सेस अमाउंट के अंदर है। सो हम यहां पर लिख सकते हैं रिमेनिंग मोल्स ऑफ वाटर, ये हो जाएगा 0.444 minus 0.3, so 0.444 minus 0.3 is going to be 0.144 moles, and because of this value I suggest the water is in excess. Okay, sulfur dioxide is an air pollutant. State one adverse effect of sulfur dioxide in the air. In the air causes acid rain. Also global warming. Because examiner is looking for the answer in the air. Okay. Describe two ways of reducing the emission of sulfur dioxide in the air. First of all, use flue gas desulfurization plant. Second, reduce the use of fossil fuel containing sulfur. That's the end of question number 6. Let's move on to the question number 7. Propanoic acid is a carboxylic acid, and this carboxylic acid is represented by this formula. This is called the structural formula of propanoic acid. We have done this in class. By the way, propanoic acid reacts with methanol to produce an ester. Okay, that's classy. First of all, in order to make an ester, carboxylic acid से हमेशा OH जाता है और अल्कोहल से हमेशा H जाता है. So whatever left, you need to write it. And whatever left, we need to write it in such a way कि हम सबसे पहले acid का part लिखेंगे. So acid का part is like this. And then after that alcohol का part लिखेंगे in such a way कि इस कार्बन की जो बॉन्डिंग है इस ऑक्सीजन के साथ हो जाए. That's what I have instructed you in the class. And oxygen के साथ CH3. So that's the structure of an ester when propanoic acid and methanol react together. Examiner is looking for the name of this ester. So name of this ester is basically what? पहले alcohol का नाम आएगा which is methyl, फिर acid का नाम आएगा which is propanoid. So according to the lecture, first of all methyl and then propanoid. Distillate formula CH3 CH2 CO O and then CH3. In distillate formula we need to mention all the atoms and all the bonds clearly. Propanoic acid is a weak acid. If I say weak, it means it partly ionizes in aqueous medium, and so this is represented by this reversible sign. Explain how this equation shows that propanoic acid is an acid by referring to the proton transfer. By the way, propanoic acid donates its hydrogen ion to water. It donates its proton to water, converting H3O plus. यहाँ देखो ना, यहाँ वाटर के पास क्या है, 2 हाइड्रोजन, यहाँ वाटर के पास क्या है, 3 हाइड्रोजन. इसका मतलब इसने अपना प्रोटॉन डोनेट किया, जब तो इसके पास से प्रोटॉन चला गया. Propanoic acid is a weak acid. Weak acid ionizes partially in water. Propanoic acid reacts with magnesium. Name the 2 products of this reaction. Magnesium propanoate and hydrogen gas. How come? Whenever any metal react with any acid, then always hydrogen gas is given off. Okay. Next part. Magnesium is solid at room temperature and pressure. Describe the motion. All solids vibrate at their fixed position. Well, I really don't understand the meaning of this term, separation. What is meant by separation? I have no clue about this. So, to be very honest, I don't understand this. In the marking scheme, I know what's given, but that didn't click at all to me. All right, which is why I'm just skipping this part. In marking scheme, I think touching is, they have written touching. So separation and touching has no connection at all in terms of chemistry, all right? So I'm just skipping this part because I don't have any clue what he's looking for. This separation, molecules are separated by intermolecular forces. I can write that, but touching is, I don't know. कि हाथ लगाने से वो separate हो जाते हैं, ये कहना चाह रहा है. So I have no clue. I really don't know what to write in this part, okay? Which is why I'm skipping this. You guys can write it at your own, okay? Just go through the examiner report for this part, all right? That's my instructions to you. Always go through the examiner report of any particular question or part of the question in which you cannot determine the actual reason of that particular answer. So in order to get the logic, in order to get the reason, just go through the examiner report of that particular part, okay? Figure 7.1 shows the simplified structure of 2 molecules that combines to form a polyamide. So whenever dicarboxylic acid and diamines react together, always polyamide is formed. Examiner is looking for the structure in which we need to mention the 2 repeating units of polyamide. So we need to mention all the atoms and all the bonds, which means indirectly examiner is looking for the displayed structure. So we have unshaded box first, which means NH2 से H चला जाएगा, NH रह जाएगा और ये बॉन्ड कंटिन्यूएशन NH, ये भी NH हो जाएगा. कार्बोक्सिलिक एसिड से OH चला जाएगा, so it will turn to CO. यहां पर भी CO होगा. एमाइन से H जाने के बाद NH लेफ्ट, यहां पर भी NH लेफ्ट, then CO, then CO and bond continuation, okay? So look at the repeating unit. This is the repeating unit. Okay. And this is the another repeating unit. So the same structure is repeated again and again, which is why examiner ने इसको repeating unit का नाम दे दिया. This entire thing is basically the repeating unit. This entire thing is basically the repeating unit. Okay. I hope it makes sense to you. Polyamides are polymers. State the meaning of the term polymer. When small molecules are combined together to give large molecule, this large molecule is polymer. Also called macromolecule. Polyamides are condensation polymer. State one difference between condensation polymerization and addition. We have done that in class in extreme detail. In addition, no loss of mass. No loss of mass occur. In condensation, polymerization, loss of mass occur. Okay. I believe that's the end of this paper.